Welcome back to Open Line. We have with us Mayor David Briley. We're talking all things Metro. He's taking calls. We have a bunch of callers. So let's go right back to the phones. Let's go to Joe. Hello, Joe.
Hello.
Joe, go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how the budget, the way the budget goes in Metro or in Davidson County, how much does the mayor rely on state funding and government funding for the interstates? Because I know they give them funding for the interstates, but then we see a mess on the interstates. So I just was curious about that. When
you say a mess, you mean the traffic or just the potholes?
Yeah, the traffic and not extending the interstates or doing anything with the way that it's like the only city in the country that I know of where 3 interstates come together in the city, and I'm wondering why the mayor hasn't done anything about doing anything about that.
That's going to be a tough one, but I'm gonna say this is a traffic question.
Yeah,
okay?
Let's look at it more broadly.
And what help do you get from the state? We certainly had a big initiative. This was just voted down here. Let's talk about traffic. And his frustration. He's frustrated with the traffic on the interstates, and I think we all are. But what about that?
So the interstates here are essentially governed by TDOT. I mean, they control, the state controls 24, 65, and 40 coming in and out of town. And so they have, I believe, more or less reached the conclusion that they can't build their way out of the problem. Adding a new lane on each side from here to Murfreesboro on 24 costs hundreds of millions of dollars, take forever, and by the time it was done, we wouldn't notice they'd done anything. So they know they need to do some stuff that our region really hasn't done before. Now, we brought the 3 interstates here back in the 50s and 60s because it was going to help us with economic development, and it truly did. I mean, we became much more economically vital than other places in our region as a result of that. And but now TDOT and the city has got to come. We have to come together and do a better job of managing the infrastructure we have in our region. And what that means is looking at the thoroughfares in and out of town, all the old pikes, Dickerson and Nolensville and Murfreesboro and Hillsboro, and trying to utilize them more efficiently. And one thing that means is working with TDOT to come up with a centralized location where we're using better sensors and communications and signalization to monitor and manage that traffic system coming in and out of town. And so we're already talking to TDOT. In the coming months, you'll see the city put some money into our capital spending plan to try and focus on that as well. That is how the city and TDOT can work better together. And I've already met with the new commissioner once. Plans to meet with him again and again to try and work better as a region when it comes to this issue of, frankly, utilizing the resources we have more efficiently. One of the other things that's in the mix on that is what they call traffic demand management. And so we think that with using some better data like you get from Waze and Google, that we can help businesses understand that moving their start and stop time for certain employees can take a significant burden off of the roadways. We have bad traffic right now, some places, sometimes. And we don't have it everywhere all the time. And so we think that at least initially we can get people moving around a lot better if we're just smarter about using the resources we currently have.
Nashville voted down a big transit initiative. What's the next thing? What's next in the planning? What do you plan to do now?
Well, that's one of the things we've talked about is getting better resources with TDOT, and then we're already looking at how we're going to improve the quality of our bus service so that it's more frequent and longer duration for folks who are using it. There are also some interesting things we think we can do with technology around that, looking at the first mile, last mile part of it, starting to look at some of maybe our more expensive routes in terms of the supplement that we are paying per rider, and trying to look at if we can partner with some of the ride sharing or Uber or Lyft to use that first mile, last mile with one of their providers instead of having a bus go on some of the routes. So there's some technological things we can do there. And then there are parts of the plan that was voted down that I think are going to make sense for us to try and get built. And we're looking at Dickerson Road and looking at Murfreesboro Road and looking at the airport and trying to figure out which one should be next. And there's no immediate announcement about something we're starting, but those are the kinds of things I think we need to be focused on in the next 10 years or so.
Let's go to Ashley. Hello, Ashley.
Yes, Mayor. Wonderful job thus far. I had a question about affordable housing and the Section 8 to homeownership program where people can use their Section 8 voucher to supplement their mortgage. Nashville was really participating in that, and I know it was helpful in the Hope Gardens area, Lockwood Street, and all that area near downtown. But I don't think they have one currently. Are there any plans to reconstitute the Section 8 to home ownership program? And I'll take my answer off the air.
I'm not. That's new. That's a new one on me. I've been a close observer of affordable housing over the last 15 years or so, and I had not heard about that one. But Section 8 vouchers are federal assistance for folks in a certain income range to help them pay for housing in the city of Nashville, across the country. And so I think what he's saying is that you could start to accumulate some ownership in the home through a Section 8 voucher. That's an interesting program. We are, through the Barnes Fund, helping not-for-profits in town build housing that is focused on home ownership. So, for example, just this last weekend, I was at a Habitat for Humanity ribbon cutting where 3 Nashville families were moving in to homes at one of their developments. And the city helped there through the Barnes Fund by paying for a big part of the infrastructure there on the facility. But I will look into the Section 8 to home ownership. I had not heard about that program.
Let's go to Mac. Hello, Mac. Are you there, Mac?
Yes, I am.
All right, go right ahead. What's on your mind?
I have several things on my mind. The oversight board that you put on the Metro Police Department, they should put that on the juvenile judicial system. That's where the problem is. And another thing I have to say about them trees they tore down, they're going to die anyway because they're in a small pot. And about the streets they keep talking about, Tennessee has the best highways in the country. If they don't like it, go to Mississippi, Missouri, and some other states and ride on their roads. And we'll go from there.
All right.
And that's about all I got to say.
All right. Well, all right, I'm going to take the juvenile crime part of that, okay? We've talked about some of the other stuff. He says, he mentioned oversight board, but he says we need to focus more on juvenile crime. There's been a lot of concern about some of what we're seeing in the news, kids being arrested, then let go, and then committing more crimes. What are your thoughts about what is happening? What are your concerns?
Well, I share the concern of any criminal conduct being too much, and so I get an email every morning that describes what the most serious events over the night before were, and too often it involves a juvenile. And so what we're working with the juvenile court with Judge Calloway over there on is trying to identify ways so that when a juvenile has their first encounter with the system over there, that we're getting them onto a path where it doesn't escalate. Typically, it's not the first encounter is not an arrest. Typically, the first time a juvenile encounters the juvenile court system, it's because they're skipping school. And under state law, we can't arrest anybody for skipping school. We can only we basically are just sending them home that day. Judge Calloway thinks that if we had a different facility where she could do evaluations and on a voluntary basis have these young people stay for 24 hours and get them into some interventions at the very beginning, we could make a big difference in terms of the number of kids ultimately moving up the ladder from being a school skipper to doing something much more serious.
Do you think we're too lenient? Whether it's Judge Calloway, the system overall, do you think we are being too lenient with these kids at this point?
Well, I haven't seen the evidence that we're too lenient. I think that I think we're seeing a spike a little bit. Overall, violent crime seems to be trending downward in Nashville. Last year we were much better on murders, for example, and this year it seems to be trending downward as well, which I'm, knock on wood, optimistic about. I have great trust in Judge Callaway, and I know she takes her job very seriously, and so I have no sense that she's being too lenient. I have a sense that we probably need to get more resources at work. Opportunity Now is a good program that we have, so if you're a 14 to 24-year-old, you can get your first job through Metro every summer, and we're trying to build that program out, so there's more to do there. But I think that we're going to have to get more resources at work. One of the plugs I always make when I'm asked this question, Ben, is that juveniles have ended up with a lot of guns recently, and a fair number of them are being stolen out of cars. So if you have a gun, a handgun, if at least lock your car. Do not leave it unlocked with a gun in it. And I would suggest to you that just leaving it in the car at all is probably, considering the high risk of it getting into the hands of a juvenile, would be something that you shouldn't do. And we feel like that could actually play a role in keeping the violence rate amongst juveniles down.
We've done stories about that, about how they are. They're just stealing guns right out of cars, glove compartments, whatever, and then those guns are being used in bad crimes. All right, we're going to take a break. Hold on the line if you're on the line. Take a break. Be back with more calls right after this.